This is the Sigma 28-70 lens for mirrorless cameras L mount and E mount. I want to talk about it today because it might just be my favorite lens and it can be paired with my favorite camera of all time. Let's dive in. Hello YouTube, welcome back to the channel. Jake Felzine here. Now real quick, I just want to address it because I know that some of you who have watched the channel are going to be curious. Yes, I'm working on music stuff. There's a big keyboard behind me, lots of cameras and microphones. I'm definitely still doing the music series. That is in the works, and in fact, I'm working on flushing it out and getting it finished. I'm hoping to film another episode. I guess it would be kind of the first episode tonight in that thread. We'll see if that pans out. Again, it's been hard with the kid and all this stuff, but you guys don't care about that. Today we're talking about a lens, and the reason we're talking about a lens is because, you know, to do all of this music stuff, I'm having to use cameras, which I love doing, and, you know, filmmaking and audio production is still very much going to be intertwined and connected on this channel, and one of my new favorite lenses that I've been using is the Sigma 28-70 for my Panasonic S5. Just to begin, all of this talking heads A-roll is actually filmed on the S5 with the Sigma 28-70 set at F2.8, so the plane of focus is pretty narrow and challenging for a system that doesn't have great autofocus. Typically, I wouldn't do this. If you guys know me, I'm not a huge autofocus kind of guy. Don't really use it for video, but I figured you guys would care, so just for the heck of it, this is being filmed in autofocus. So why do I like this lens? There's really three main things. The first being the size of the lens, the second being the character and quality of the lens, and the third being kind of my contextual history and really wanting a lens like this having come from a certain setup, which we'll talk about when we get to the third point. With that first point, the size and weight of this lens is really at a sweet spot for me. It feels really good on the Panasonic S5. It's nice, it's lightweight, it's compact, and you get an f2.8 aperture, which is fantastic. You can really shoot in a lot of more challenging lighting conditions for videos and for photos, and you can get those blurry backgrounds, you know, that everyone loves for both photos and videos in a really small and compact setup, which I love. That's one of the main reasons I love this lens. I had before this lens the 24-105, which was an f4, and it was a really big lens, and I wasn't a huge fan of it, and I wasn't getting f2.8, and so I really wanted to find something like this, but of course the Pro Panasonic f2.8, I think it's the 24-70, so it's a little wider, but it's a huge lens, and I'm so glad that I found the Sigma lens because it checks my box on being nice and compact, but also still giving a lot of those pro end features with the wider aperture and the good image quality, but it's small. Reason number two, the image quality itself with this lens, I have been incredibly pleased with. For those of you who don't know, I have shot on a Pocket 4K. It's kind of back there, it's a little bit hard to see, but I have pretty much loved using the Sigma 18-35, I believe it is, on that camera, and there's something about Sigma lenses that just, I don't know how to describe it, but I've always been really pleased with the contrast, the color, you know, the color that comes out of these lenses. They look really good, and I was a little skeptical on this one because it is kind of a, you know, more budget-friendly option, but it's a great lens, and I've actually been really pleased with the results. It totally kind of feels like you're shooting on a very similar lens to the 18-35. It might be a little bit sharper, but, you know, throw a ProMIS filter on the front or an ND filter, and it kind of brings some of that Sigma character right back in. And I love the color, I love the contrast. I've really enjoyed the image coming from this lens. And again, it's in a nice, small, compact, mirrorless sort of setup. Really enjoying that for when I'm either taking photos or shooting videos. So lastly, the reason I love this setup so much is I used to use a Sony a7 III with a Tamron 28-75, which is kind of the best photo experience I've ever had with a camera, and I think to this day that's still true, even though I'm really pleased with the photo experience and user experience of the S5. I do think the A7 III with the Tamron 28-75 is just kind of an unbeatable combo. It's really good and really solid for photography, but for those of you who don't know, that system I always felt like was working against me for video. Just always felt that way. It always felt like I was kind of fighting it to get the video quality that I wanted. And I always knew, having shot with Panasonic cameras, that they worked with me and made me feel like when I was making videos that kind of everything was easier and more simple to do. So, having come from that amazing photo setup and wanting to essentially get kind of the same sort of look, and feel, I switched to the Panasonic S5, which is a pretty similar body. It's a little bit bigger, but I actually really enjoy it, and I'm getting all of that video experience with a very similar package. The 28 to 70 feels very much like the Tamron lens. It's very lightweight. It's held up in the weather, and it just doesn't, feel really big and bulky, and that is why I love this setup so much. Having loved that experience with the A7 III and the Tamron, this really feels like the Lumix version plus a different lens that feels kind of like the same lens. It just doesn't have that extra 5 millimeters at the end, but personally, it still feels almost identical to me. So I guess what I'm trying to say with this piece is that camera I really enjoyed for photos. This camera I still really enjoy for photos, but now I love using it with video, and this lens contributes to that. And I basically just feel like if you're starting out and you want kind of a budget-friendly option, if you're just wanting to take pictures, the Sony A7 III, which I know the A7 IV just came out, the A7 III is even cheaper. If it's just for pictures, that with the Tamron is a great way to go. If it's video you want to focus on but still can take awesome pictures, which we will talk about next, this is an absolutely killer lens with a killer camera, and I highly recommend it. So lastly, I think it's important to show, not just a roll of this lens, but I'm going to, play some music and play some photos that I've taken with this lens, as well as some video clips that I've been using to make kind of the music, series that I had talked about. So let's just play that right now, and you guys can see what this lens is capable of in the hands of Jake Felzing. All right, guys, so let's wrap it up. All in all, this lens is fantastic. Again, if you're kind of thinking about going, even with Sony, this lens does work with Sony cameras, but I obviously bought it as a Panasonic user. If you're an L-mount user and you're looking for a really nice f2.8 lens that's lightweight, has good build quality, but isn't, maybe the most pro, but is more budget friendly, I would highly recommend this lens. And again, if you're someone who is really at this kind of crossroads of maybe you had your phone or your GoPro and maybe a small point and shoot, and you're trying to kind of go, hey, I want to get a more professional setup, but I don't have a ton of money. Again, if it's for photos, I definitely would recommend the A7 III, and you could do this lens. I haven't tested it with Sony, but I would recommend this lens, or the Tamron, either very close, very similar, very good. But if you are wanting to focus more on video and want to save some money, the S5 is a very reasonably priced camera. This lens is very reasonably priced. I would highly recommend this setup for video. It rocks. It's fantastic. And in my opinion, I have gotten just as good of photos with this setup. No complaints. Really, the only thing that is a little bit trying for me at times is the autofocus, but in photos, the difference in autofocus from the Sony is actually really thin. It's mostly just the video autofocus, and again, that's not why I bought this camera. I use the other video features besides autofocus, and that's what's more important to me. So this camera, this lens is absolutely killer. Definitely consider it. and I've been using it for all of this music stuff that I've been trying to get off the ground, and hopefully can go do that tonight. But yeah, just wanted to share about this lens, and I've kind of been buying more lenses, of course, because I need them to make these videos, and just wanted to share with you guys. So anyway, thanks for watching. Catch you guys in the next one. Hopefully the next one is a music related video, but also it might be a Final Cut video. They just released that tracking, that 10.6 update, and I am very much wanting to play around with that. So that might be the next video. But either way, it's that one or music. I'll catch you guys in one of those. So see you guys.